The D&D Creator Summit has just wrapped up, and we have got a lot of news from the creators who were invited to go. The vast majority of the information I've gathered here has come from Nerd Immersion and his tweets, so if you want to read through all of them, I will link his Twitter down below, but if you just want the summary, here we go. Starting off with the virtual tabletop. The D&D virtual tabletop will have a Steam-like marketplace for creators to make digital books and offer them for sale and make profit from them. They are also making sure you only buy the product once. This is awesome, and a lot of people have already speculated this is going to be happening, as Wizards has already started to do that with D&D Beyond products as soon as they acquired them. And Games Workshop even does a similar thing, where at the back of each one of their books there's a little code. You scan that code, you put it into the app, and you get all that product on the digital marketplace. So for future adventures, it seems that you're going to be doing the same thing. You buy the adventure book, you scan the code, you upload that code to the virtual tabletop, and you have the entire adventure and all the encounters and everything you need in the virtual tabletop at no additional cost. But speaking of cost, in regards to the price of the VTT, Wizards says they want people to play, not be charged at the door, which basically means free to play with microtransactions in store if you wish to spend it. And again, I don't understand why everybody is angry about this, because there's no such thing as a free lunch. If it's free to use, then it has to be funded some other way, and it's either going to be funded by microtransactions made in the application or advertisements. I would rather have microtransactions than advertisements everywhere, but your mileage may vary. And if you really don't like the VTT still, go use a different VTT, which also has microtransactions, subscription offers, or advertisements. But I also want to point out something fantastic about this previous point here. The ability for creators to make digital books and offer them for sale and make profit from them. You, or I, or anybody could make your own one-shot, make your own entire campaign, make all the digital assets for that campaign, and then sell it on the marketplace. You could potentially, depending on how the profit margins work out and how it actually is to use, make money doing this. And that, for me personally, is fantastic. They also say that Wizards is very open to making new things for the VTT based on what customers ask for, like Bluetooth dice, for example. The reason I say this is because someone at the summit asked if Bluetooth dice could connect to the VTT, and they said if that's what the customers want, we will make sure it works. So if a lot of you have BT dice and you want to use them and connect it directly to the VTT, if enough of you want that, Wizards will make it happen. And I have no doubt that goes for many other features. Somebody else asked also if it would work in strictly top-down only and you didn't have to use the entire 3D space. And they said if enough people ask for it, we'll make sure it works. Now, moving away from the VTT, we now get to some of the biggest news that was released at the summit. A new UA is coming in a few weeks, featuring all 6 remaining official classes and a massive weapon update. And when I say massive, just from these leaks, holy shit, do they mean massive? Let's go over this. Simple and martial weapons still exist. The Bard, Fighter, and Monk have a brand new feature called Weapon Mastery, which lets you master certain abilities called Slow, Nick, Push, Puncture, Sap, Flex, Cleave, Graze, and Topple. You will need special properties that require you to have a class feature to unlock these weapon masteries. For example, if the fighter gets a dagger and focuses training on the dagger, they could get the Nick property. Now, Wingless, what's the Nick property? I don't know. They didn't reveal that, but what they did reveal is these properties. Club Mastery gives you Slow, reduces their speed by 10 feet. The Great Club pushes or knocks someone back by 10 feet. Cleave property allows you to keep going, whatever that means. Flex property gives you versatile damage with one hand. Graze, which is one of the most ridiculous shit I've ever read, gives you a baseline damage you're always doing even if you miss. I'm very excited to read the rules in full of what it means that you have a baseline damage you're always doing even if you miss, because why bother fucking rolling anymore? The Puncture property gives you advantage on the next attack roll against that target, and they said it works with sneak attack, so I'm sure that's gonna be fucking juicy. And short swords are now martial, no longer simple, and tridents now do 1d8 instead of their previous damage. And here's another massive part that I'm sure a lot of you are not going to be happy about. The musket and pistol are now on the martial weapon list. So I'm very excited to read what the fuck the musket and pistol do on the new UA. That's going to be really exciting to see. And moving away from that, they do mention that a future UA will have a new Bard subclass called the College of Dance. They did not reveal anything else but its name. Now let's talk about the 2024 books and all they entail, starting with the fact that the 2024 Players Handbook will feature all new artwork. And speaking of artwork, we have one piece of new artwork that was leaked that I will show you at the very end. You will still be able to make a character using Xanathar's or Tasha's and play with the 2024 Players Handbook. Retired rules from the 2014 Players Handbook will be referenced in the glossary of the 2024 Players Handbook. Now here's a little bit of a weird one for you, but Wizards is no longer calling it 1D&D. They are now calling it Revised 5th. So Wizards is still holding to their guns about it not being called 5.5 or not being called 6th edition, and now they're going away from 1D and they're just calling it revised 5th edition. So it's technically still 5th edition, just revised 5th edition. I'm certain so many of you are still going to call it 6th edition or 5.5 or something else entirely either way. Now, some rules in Tasha's and Xanathar's will be in the 2024 Players Handbook, and everything else will be in future books. I have no doubt rules like using your ability score improvement that you get from your race or species now, and you can put that wherever you want, was the rule they gave in Tasha's instead of it being a fixed location. I'm almost certain that's one of those rules that's going to be in the Players Handbook because it just makes sense. Here's a bit of a weird one. Monk's Key is now going to be called Spirit Points. The reason stated for that is because Key, I guess, was too culturally appropriate because it was too much like Asian culture. I'm fine with Key, but I'm not Asian, so your mileage may vary, but either way, the new Players Handbook is going to be calling it Spirit Points instead. Wizard and Cleric will only have 4 subclasses in the 2024 Players Handbook, and Warlocks can now make a mini pack at level 1, and they have Eldritch spells, which are now built into the class. I'm dead certain Eldritch Blast is going to be one of these built-in spells, so you don't have to worry about taking it as you level up. It will just be given to you for free, along with whatever Eldritch spells they deem. Now here's an overview for the 2024 Players Handbook. It is longer than 2014 by 32 to 64 pages. It'll have 12 classes, 48 subclasses, and 9 species: human, dwarf, dragonborn, halfling, elf, gnome, Goliath, orc, and tiefling. No half species. This means no half elves and no half orcs. Apparently, Wizards hasn't liked half species for a while, so this is their way of getting rid of them. They did not elaborate on why they don't like half species, whether that's because of cultural appropriation or because stat-wise they're usually pretty busted. Let's be honest, half elf is ridiculous. But either way, they're gone as of next year. They did say that on D&D Beyond they would still remain as a legacy species for those who still want to use them. They just will not be printed in the new book. It will also have new backgrounds and the ability to build your own background, along with new feats, new spells, new equipment, and new weapons. New weapons like, oh, I don't know, the musket and pistol. Oh boy. Now as a DM, this is where we get into the really exciting stuff for me. In the 2024 Monster Manual, monsters with a CR of 10 or higher will hit way harder. This makes me very happy, as especially with characters getting stronger and stronger as they level up, the monsters do not scale to the same degree that characters do. Everyone knows that action economy is a very real thing, and if you have more actions on one side than the other, the one side with more actions is usually the side to win, and Wizards is trying to balance this out by using legendary actions and layer actions and the such so that it can kind of come to a balance, but honestly, the best way is to just give them stronger abilities overall that hit way harder with those actions that they do use. Because a lot of the legendary actions you find for creatures that do have them are stuff like they move up to their movement speed, or they do a certain ability that can like push enemies back and such, but nothing actually does damage. Now these aren't bad in themselves. They can allow you to reposition yourself around the map for better battles and such, but just the ability to actually hit harder than the 6 characters with 6 actions, more than that if they have fighters with action surge and the like, it's just very happy to hear that they're going to hit way harder. There's also going to be 500 plus new monsters in the 2024 Monster Manual. There's also going to be more CR 20 plus monsters, thank God. I'm really hoping they add at least just one more CR 30 monster, because right now there's only 2, Tiamat and the Tarask. I want just third one. Just give me a trio of CR 30 monsters, please. And the exact pricing for magic items will now be in the 2024 DM's guide, which is so nice to hear, because anytime you have your players trying to sell magical items that they found or buy magical items from a store that sells them, you have a rough reference point, but that reference point is miles wide. I can't remember which tier it is. I believe it's rare, but rare magical items can be anywhere between like 1,000 gold to 10,000 gold, which is an enormous fucking range to think of when you're trying to sell a magic item. It's like, oh, is this 1,500 or is this 9,300 gold? Like, oh, Jesus Christ. So I'm very glad there's going to be exact pricing for magic items, because it will make my life and my players' lives so much easier. And finally, Planescape will be a box set, just like Spelljammer was. Now, I bought Spelljammer and I wasn't super whelmed with what Spelljammer had to offer. There's a couple things I picked out of it that I was like, yeah, you know what, I will definitely use this later. But as a whole, I was very underwhelmed with Spelljammer. I am very excited for Planescape though. And I understand why it's going to be a box set, because I was very curious how they're going to do Planescape in just one book, because it's a massive setting that's quite literally multiverse level, because that's what it is. You're jumping between different planes. And as a box set, that makes much more sense to me. They can fit a lot more in that. But also, are they able to fill enough of it where it all feels meaningful and it all feels fulfilling? Because Spelljammer wasn't. And the art piece I talked about earlier, this This was leaked. This is a chromatic black dragon. No idea what book it's coming from, but this is the new look for the black dragons. And I gotta be honest with you, it looks fucking sick. What do you think of the news we've gotten so far? Are you excited? Are you not excited? Are you kind of meh? Please leave your comments down below. I would love to have a discussion about this.